Details about the upcoming patch have been revealed, including all the museum buffs, the active skill animation for Belisarius Prime, and a lot more. So stick around in this video for the things you need to know about the upcoming patch, and some of these early game commanders are actually looking pretty spicy. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And the museum system is something that I have been advocating for a long time. I really feel like the early game commanders need to be balanced with the end game commanders so that the early game players have something exciting to go and do as they make their way to the end game. In my opinion, the end game commanders should give you more specialized things to do, but that everything should be balanced together and that the late game stuff shouldn't be so far ahead of the early game stuff that the early game players are like, why am I collecting anything? Collection's a big part of the game. It's got to be rewarding. Now, the museum is where that happens, and there's a number of commanders that got museum buffs, and some of them I'm like, hey, yo, why are you buffing Attila? A dude was already busted. And some early game commanders I'm like, hey, yo, are they going to be busted now that you're giving them more buffs? So let's get a look at this. First and foremost, Attila gets 5% cav defense, 3% skill, damage taken, reduction. Not bad. Man, that ain't bad. For a commander that didn't need a buff at all. Whew. Now, why do I say he didn't need a buff at all? We used Gorgo and Attila. I feel like I've said this so many times, but if you're watching one of my videos for the very first time, there were moments where we were trading 2-for-1 positive against the strongest swarming kingdom literally in the game, using Gorgo and Attila together as a garrison in a KvK with an artifact where you could switch the troop type. I'll have a card up in the top. You can see the reports. Like, it's not cap. It's just fact. This garrison is the most broken garrison in the game. Not by a little, but it's actually by a lot. So the fact that this garrison just got better blows my freaking mind. Now, you may wonder, like, why would the developers put any buff on this commander at all? But also, like, it's such a small buff, like 5% defense, 3% skill damage taken reduction. And the thing is that, you know, we're getting more and more of these buffs. And, you know, next up is Guan and Leonidas, right? So, like, we're getting up into these commanders where, like, oh, dang, we're getting the commanders that people actually still use today. And these buffs are, even if they're small, it's like, hey, I use that commander. People are going to start running out of this currency, okay? That's my suspicion. And so even though this buff is small, I think part of the goal here is to give us lots of places to use this currency. Now, for what it's worth, you can go buy more of this currency if you want. It's in the shop, and there's actually a bundle that only costs $1. I think it's $1, maybe $2 or $3, and then like $5. And I'm mentioning that because one of the tips you can use for paying your way through the Alliance mobilization event is that on the quests that require you to buy bundles that give an Alliance gift, that $1 bundle for this currency actually is not terrible. And there will be more uses for this currency going forward, I suspect. Especially because we now have 3 gem relics. I don't know what to call these things when you unlock the relic. Like, is it a gem? It's a level 3. Oh, level 3 relic, okay? I'll show you what I mean in a minute here. First, we need to talk about Takeda. I feel like Takeda was more than 10% health and 5% march speed for meta. I would have given him a stronger buff. But I also think perhaps it is better to err on the side of not making older commanders completely broken. Or is it better? Maybe it's better to, like, oops, we brought them too far back into the meta. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. But as of right now, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever, in my opinion, to invest in Takeda. My 2 cents. 0 reason. You could just use Ragnar if you want a similar effect. It's like the same thing. And I've proven that. Card up in the top. Results are very similar. Takeda, Ragnar. Just use Ragnar. You can get him from gold keys. And he's also got a museum buff, for what it's worth. I, without having done testing, would have liked to have seen Takeda get pushed a little harder. From here, and, you know, they can always add another level of the buff, but whatever. From here, we can talk about Constantine. Now, Constantine, holy cow. So he already had a 20% attack, 5% normal buff. Now he's getting a 25% attack, 10% normal buff. So 5% more attack, 5% more normal. I will snap this off as fast as I possibly can because Constantine is the best commander in the game without hesitation. Slam dunk. Okay, 11 out of 10 for Canyon. Best commander in the game. Not even close. Your next best option is Zhuge Liang, but, like, Constantine is the most goated Canyon warrior commander. Hands down. I mean, look, he gets like half his troops back. No, not half, but like he does a massive heal, okay? And that massive heal is night and day. More troop count, absolutely is game-changing in Canyon. That's just how that game mode works. The other thing that's nuts, though, is that for a time, Gorgo Constantine was the garrison to use. And Gorgo with Constantine is really good against swarms if you can get a couple ways to trigger shields, like a lucky coin. And also, you get, I can't remember the name of it, there's an inscription that will give you a shield periodically. Because every time you take a shield, Constantine will make it so you take like 30 or 40% less skill damage. I can't remember. So the point I'm trying to make here is that you already could have made an argument that a Constantine garrison was a thing you could use in certain situations. And here we are, and it's better. So very curious to see how that goes. And normal attack damage, as you all know, is very good against swarms also. So he's getting even better against swarms. And you pair him with Liu Che and Canyon, and Liu Che has smite damage. So you're boosting the skill damage that Liu Che does, because it's technically smite damage, not skill damage, that comes from normal attack boost. All that to say, hot damn. Snap that one off when reset hits, when this is in game, because that's good. That's real good. I guess maybe it won't have to be reset. Maybe it'll just appear, after the maintenance window. Up next, 15% more attack on your boy Charles Martel. Let me tell you something. That is a lot of stats. Like 15%? Dude, it's the equivalent of what? Like, it's hard to make the equivalent now because of the way that, tiered iconic equipment works, but it's kind of like giving you another boot pattern or glove pattern worth of stats, right? At the legendary tier. Like 15% of stats is really good. I don't know. You'd have to do the weird math around the iconic tiers and what that's all worth. But the point I'm trying to make is that people were already using Charles Martel. Specifically, Charles Martel was already getting use in garrisons against swarms. And you may recall that attack stat does several things. It boosts the damage you deal when you directly target someone. It boosts the damage you deal when people target you, also known as counterattack. And it also is boosting your skill damage. So attack stat on Charles Martel is really wild. So we could see a bit of an anti-swarm resurgence of Gorgo and Charles, because that combo actually is getting better, which is really crazy. Of course, we're about to get a new Cav garrison, so all in all, who knows? But I really like the developers pushing the power on early game commanders. Speaking of which, Alexander the Great. Damn, son. Damn. I mean, you could have made an argument that Liu Che and Gorgo together is definitely better than Liu Che with Alex. But slap another 10% defense and 3% normal attack damage taken reduction, and you might just have the rationale you need at this point to say, hey, you know what? In the early game, consider spinning the wheel for Alexander the Great, okay? You don't even have to max him. Go get the museum buff on him, and then as soon as you hit Season of Conquest, start working on Liu Che and pair them together, and like, boom, good combo. Really good combo, and you can do something in the early game. I feel like this is the thing that museum buffs are supposed to be doing. In my opinion, a museum buff should not make an irrelevant commander less irrelevant. It should take a commander that's not in meta and make them comparable to meta. This is really doing that, because you already could argue that Liu Che with Alex was meta. So this is very good for anyone who is a mid to low spender or already has Alex. This is a really nice addition to the game, IMO. From here, Richard I. Now, this is what I don't understand. Why give Richard I 4% extra counterattack damage? This, to me, signals that the developers think he is really broken good. I wonder what they know that we as players have not figured out. Because I don't think he's that good that we'd say, oh, yeah, just give him 4% more counterattack and he's gravy. He's like totally meta. I don't think he's anywhere near meta. So I would not use Richard I in 2024 in the end game, except maybe in Canyon. And like maybe they're worried he's getting too strong in Canyon. I don't know. This is a buff I feel like I would like to have seen the power get pushed at least at the same jump that they did before. With another 5% march speed, make them really zoomy, right? I don't know. I don't know. Even with the extra march speed, I wouldn't put Richard on meta, but maybe there's something I'm missing here. All right. On the topic of pushing power, let's talk about Pyrrhus. With 40% defense and 10% skill damage dealt, why did they put skill damage dealt on him? If this, I mean, unless this is also, it shouldn't do smite damage. It shouldn't buff your smite damage. So like, if this was something other than skill damage, you could make an argument that the play would be to invest a little bit early in Pyrrhus and then run through that to the late game, and then you use Pyrrhus with Liu Cha. And like that would be a sick combo. But bonus skill damage here is not synergistic. Maybe the 40% defense is just good enough on him. I don't think so. I think there was a bigger opportunity here. I would change the skill damage to something else. But here's the other weirdness, right? Is I'm saying, oh, look, they've got 3 tiers of museum buff on these commanders. But who has the currency for 3 tiers of museum buffs, right, when you get to the end game? Plus all the other commanders you want to be doing, right? So I don't know. I think this is cool to see. I would like to see Pyrrhus be more relevant. We'll have to test with him, see how this looks. On the topic of let's see how this looks, here is your Belisarius Prime active skill. We can run this a couple times. They cut this thing a little bit short in the recording, but it's kind of cool. I mean, it's single target damage, but it gives an AoE template on the ground. What looks like an AoE template. I don't know. Here's the thing I'll say about Belisarius Prime, all right? And I might need to make a video about this, but I talked about this in my live stream. If you're subscribed to the channel, you might already know this. But the expertise skill on Belisarius Prime looks like it's a debuff, which people are going to catch up to this. I can't believe it's a debuff. It's like the only debuff in the game that applies in real time, theoretically, if the rumors are true, onto an enemy every single second. So basically, Belisarius Prime hits someone, and as long as 5+ other marches are hitting that same thing, that target takes 12% more all damage. That is insane. I may make a separate video about it to prove that Belisarius Prime is going to be meta, and that probably that is so good that most people probably should go work on him, but we'll talk about that more in another video, because I think some people will find that controversial, and then I think there's just going to be reality that an all damage taken debuff that applies instantly, guaranteed, every second that the target's being hit? Guys, look, that's really powerful. We've also got this new game mode coming in, which is pretty much kind of like the Battle Royale mode we already have. Right, I knew I had the name here. It's Triarch Trouble. So matchmaking. You join Triarch Trouble by yourself or with a group. So you should do this with a group. It's groups of 3. And the battle rules. You can select 1 troop to enter the Triarch Trouble battlefield. Units will be provided to you. The types of units provided will be based on the talents of your troop's primary commander. Each match will consist of 9 governors, split into 3 teams of 3. If you join the event as a part of a group, you will be assigned to the same team as your fellow group members. Sometime after the start of the match, the troops on the battlefield with the most units will become the hegemon troop. The hegemon troop moves slower, deals more damage, and takes more damage than regular troops. A troop can become the new hegemon troop if it gains more units than the hegemon troop, and if the hegemon troop leaves combat. So this is important. So like, if you're in combat, but you get weakened, you're still the hegemon. But once you leave combat, if you're no longer the strongest, is what it is. You lose your hegemon status. At the end of the match, the current hegemon's troops team will take home first place. All troops on the battlefield will periodically be granted a random battlefield skill. There's going to be fires of war that approach the center of the map, which is, you know, what you see in typical battle royale games, forcing everybody to the center over time. As the match progresses, mercenaries are going to spawn. You can go stand near them to recruit them. After defeating another governor's troop, you recruit a number of their units into your own. The more units in your troop, the fewer enemy units you can recruit each time, which is kind of cool, so you can't just snowball. If your troop exits combat, it will gradually recover units. Oh, interesting. That's different. Up to a certain percentage of its unit count that it had when it entered combat. And the Triarch Trouble battle is particularly vicious. Okay. Troops will gain march speed while marching and will take increased damage in combat. In addition, the effects of surrounding a troop will be greatly increased. So this is supposed to be a thing where you play as a team, all right? If your troop is defeated, it will respawn at a random part of the map after a period of time. Your troop's unit count after respawning will be a certain percentage of its unit count when you last entered combat. So you can respawn back in. Interesting. Okay, and then the reward section at the end of each match, all members of the Hegemon Troops team will get 4 victory points. Members of other teams get 2 victory points. The more victory points you accumulate, the better your final rewards will be. Interesting. I wonder if it's just tiered rewards like we're used to, or if there's a total score. And if it's a total score, like, are we going to have to grind this for a leaderboard to be like #1 in the world? That's a lot of grinding. If you quit a match midway, you will not earn any victory points. GG. Victory points will be reset when the event ends. And the following buffs do not take effect in the battlefield. Item buffs, Holy Site buffs, Alliance Tech, Alliance Skills, Alliance Title, Lost Kingdom, Kingdom Title, Kingdom buffs, and Rune buffs. But city themes actually apply? ? That's interesting. Formation and armament bonuses will only take effect after... Oh, those apply? All right. I see you, game. All right, cool. Very cool. So you cannot... this is important to know. This to me is a little confusing. I got wrecked by this once, but you cannot start a new match within an hour of the event about to end. So get this in before the very end of the event. You have to, or you will not be able to get the rewards that you intend to get. Sucks to suck. I found out the hard way. With regard to the battlefield skills, we're going to have the Swamped ability. Turns the ground around your troop to mud, reducing march speed of the troops stuck in the mud by 30%, lasts for 7 seconds. Meteor we're familiar with, 300 damage factor per second to all surrounding enemies for 5 seconds. Hiring freeze. I don't like this particularly much, but you select one enemy troop and they cannot recruit mercenaries. Oh, and they lose 50% march speed. Okay, actually, that's a good skill. That's a good skill. In the other Battle Royale game mode, like you don't actually, I think, reduce their march speed, but this combined effect is kind of cool. Effective recruitment. Gain 50% more units when recruiting mercenaries. Last 10 seconds. Hear ye. Your troop immediately gains 20,000 more units for 10 seconds, and then rush. Your troop gains 40% march speed for 8 seconds. I think this could be an okay event. The reason I'm not more excited is I feel like the other Battle Royale game mode is like too zoomed in, and it's still too zoomed in, and it's been out for like, I don't know how many years. So hopefully you get enough zoomed out of a view that you can like actually look around without having to constantly be scrolling, and you can make strategic choices. I am hopeful for this event. It could be cool. It could definitely be cool. A couple other major things that are on their way. One is the ability to very easily see where the fighting is. And in the video that the developers put out today where they were talking about this, they said, hey, content creators rejoice. I would guarantee you that more people are going to be spectating in-game as a result of this feature. This is in Call of Dragons, where you already can do this. You can see where the fighting is and where it's actively happening when you look into someone else's KvK. This is going to lead to way more KvK spectating and is overall very healthy for the game. But I am super hyped that A, we can find the fights, and that B, you can change the color of different kingdoms. So you can decide which kingdom to make blue, and then you actually can look at a fight and be like, hey, I understand what's happening here, which is really, really, really going to be great for the game in terms of people enjoying watching what's happening. And I get messages literally every day when I'm fighting in Call of Dragons where people are like, oh man, I saw the notification for where the fighting is, and I'm watching you guys. I'm cheering for you. I'm rooting for you. I'm watching. Even if I'm not streaming, people are like, oh, this is so cool. So I think this feature is way better than it's getting credit for. This is not a content creator feature. This is an everybody feature, in my opinion. But I don't know, man. Am I crazy? Let me know down below in the comments. Do you think you're more likely to spectate with this feature? I think it's pretty cool. Also, new siege weapon coming. Twilight Epiphany. Definitely a powerful piece of equipment. I mean, I would assume this is like a thing that you get from KvK, but I feel like they didn't mention that. Like, this is KvK reward levels of power, but is this a KvK reward? How do you get this pattern? Or is this going to come from something else? I would assume this is a KvK reward, that it goes in the Season of Conquest shop, but I could be wrong. I feel like they didn't mention it going to the Season of Conquest, like, KvK shop. I think they said I don't know. Drop a comment. Let me know. How do you get this thing? For me, I mean, the reason I don't know is because I'm not doing ranged marches. I have no intention of ever doing ranged marches. I can't swarm a garrison with a ranged march. It's not relevant to me. And every march needs to be able to swarm a garrison. And I get you can do something strategic and really cool, but, you know, do I want to invest the many, many, many thousands of legendary materials it would take to make a meta set of this when I already have 7 meta sets? No, I don't think so. Not for me. I'm just going to keep working on the iconic tiers of the stuff I have. But hey, for those of you that are doing the range thing, y'all are going to start really wrecking people. Let me tell you. I think that the current set for ranged, I mean, well, let's just jump in game. We could talk about this. Yeah, I did remember correctly. The current set for ranged is 5 piece. And there's no weapon. Huh. There's no weapon. So I wonder, dude, is it not going to be a KvK reward, but it's going to have KvK reward style stats? Dang. And there's no 6-piece bonus, is there? Yeah, just a 4-piece bonus. Very curious. Very curious. I think that is the developers really nudging us toward making the Siege stuff, where they're like, no, trust us. Make the Siege stuff. It doesn't even take up your conquest coins. Trust. Go make it. I don't know. We'll see where it comes from and what currency it takes. Yeah, if I can't swarm a garrison, like, it's what it is. Next thing you know, I'm going to be able to swarm garrisons with the siege units, but who knows, man. And the other thing we need to get a look at just real quick is the city themes. So they revealed what the city themes are going to be for the upcoming event. Let me just pull up the names real quick. We've got the rare exhibit, the Golden Sled Cottage, and the Snow Carol for Museum Day. Rare exhibit, Golden Sled, Snow Carol. Let's get a look at the stats on these. Rare exhibit gives 5% cavalry attack at the cost of 5% infantry defense. I mean, if you didn't have a cav theme and you wanted to have one for rallying barb forts, like, sure, you'd pick it up. If you have more cavs than you do infantry in the open field, you could do it. But not amazing to be gaining attack at the cost of defense of another unit. In fact, you'd rather pick up Snow Carol, the other option here, now on screen. Same 5% cav attack, but instead you lose 5% infantry attack. That is definitely better. So even though Rare Exhibit, I think, is kind of the cooler looking theme, to be honest, in my opinion, I would say Snow Carol is the way to go. That's between the two of them to pick. Oh, but then there's the Golden Sled Cottage, which somehow I have not unlocked, which is kind of curious. I don't know. It must have come in one of those events where you could spend gems on the currency if you want, but I was like, why would I do that? I don't need it. So it gives 5% cav health at the cost of 5% archer health. I mean, if you wanted a cav theme, this is definitely better than the other ones, assuming that you're not an archer player, but especially if you're just rallying barb forts in the off season, right? Like, you definitely want cav stats. That's good. 5% cav health, cost 5% archer health. Very nice. Not an insane city theme. Okay. Like, if you wanted one of the best city themes, and I just even remember it's like Magpie Bridge for calves. 5% cav health at the cost of 5% archer defense. Maybe you could do better. There's a lot of these themes these days. Here it is. This one. Oh, yeah. 5% cav health at the cost of 5% archer attack. That's a nice one. Mighty Forest. But anyways, that's not actually available in this event. Those other 3 were the 3 that we're looking at. So all in all, really hyped for this update. Anytime we're getting museum buffs, I actually think it's healthy for the game. We should get more of these. And I hope that the developers push power on early game commanders. Like, I actually don't understand why they aren't pushing so hard on Hannibal Barca, honestly. I mean, he is a VIP commander. And his museum buff should absolutely make him relevant. And he's not there. But in my opinion, he's a VIP commander. What are we talking about? Okay? What are we talking about? I'd make him super. I'd totally shove him in the direction of being borderline meta with a museum buff. But I don't think he's there. And I don't, he's not easy. It ain't easy to get him to that spot, unfortunately. I don't know what they need to do. They need to do some things. But I'm veering off on other topics now. If you enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here. Consider subscribing. If you want to see either of those crazy garrisons I was talking about, Attila and Gorgo together, or Gorgo and Constantine together, I've proven on multiple occasions that they are very powerful combos. Card in the end screen in just a second. Hope you check those out. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.